You're listening to Keeping It Real with Janine, your guide to living an authentic, healthy life. I'm Janine, your host, and today should be a fun conversation. I'm talking with Leanne Pruett of Let's Ace Your Space, and Leanne is going to help us all declutter and get organized. Leanne Pruett is the founder of Let's Ace Your Space and host of the Ace Your Space Summit. She's on a mission to help entrepreneurs and other on-the-go people simplify decluttering so that it no longer blocks their momentum and keeps them from the things they really want in life. Leanne hasn't always been an organized person, but she was able to change her habits and mindset around her space to finally get her home decluttered. She's also helped lots of folks declutter and organize their homes to free up powerful mental and physical energy to accomplish their goals. Hi, Leanne. How are you?
Hi, Janine. I am doing great. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah, welcome to the podcast. Well, I know I need to free up more energy, so I'm ready to learn and take action.
Okay, we got you covered.
Now, you had a 9-to-5 job for many years, yes?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and then you decided to become an entrepreneur and help others declutter and get organized. How about let's start with what motivated you to take the entrepreneurial leap?
Oh, sure, Janine. And I got to tell you, Janine, I am not a fast learner. I was in the corporate world for, gosh, close to 30 years, probably about 27, 28 years.
Oh, wow.
And I knew for a long time that it really wasn't something that I wanted to do, and I wanted to do something different, my own thing. And I finally just had enough and said, no, this is enough. I've done this long enough. I love decluttering and organizing and space planning, that sort of stuff. I'm making a change, and that's how I did it. So first, I guess I would tell people, don't wait as long as I did. But on the flip side, if you did wait as long as I did, it's never too late. So
right. I think that's an important point because people feel like, oh, I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 50s or I'm in my 60s. It's too late. And the attitude, and I've done that myself, but the attitude that I like to take is, even if it takes you a year or 2 years or 3 or 4 to learn what it is you really want to do and what you love, that time's going to go by anyway. Right.
Absolutely.
So you may as well be focusing on what you want to do. And it really is never too late.
No.
So what were you doing before? I'm just curious.
So I worked for, I did regulatory affairs. I worked for companies doing this, and I also worked, for consulting firms. And I did a little consulting myself as this. And basically, either the companies that I worked for or my clients manufactured pesticide products, insecticides, herbicides, disinfectants, fungicides. And of course, those are very heavily regulated products, hence the regulatory affairs. And, for a long time, I was really I was really ambivalent about doing what I was doing. So I'm really glad that I got out of that, and I'm doing something completely different now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I know it makes a big difference to do something you really enjoy.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
I always say we spend so many hours every day at our work, whatever that is, that it really is a good idea to do something you enjoy doing.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So what is your definition of clutter? What?
Right. So, clutter, it's actually grown a lot and changed a lot since I started Let's Ace Your Space and started looking at clutter. And right now, I really view clutter as anything that gets in the way of you and what you want in your life, your goals, your dreams, your big picture. Now, of course, I work a lot with physical clutter, also with, digital clutter, things like that, and paper clutter. But really, just all of it is clutter. If you take a look at it, anything that is in between you and what you want in your life, that's clutter.
Mm-hmm. So can you give an example of what that might be, or maybe somebody that you've worked with where clutter has gotten in the way of what they want?
Oh, I can give a lot of examples like that.
Great.
I've worked with a woman who just was very frustrated. Her house, if you walked into her house, it looked like it would look fine. She had a lot of hidden clutter. And the main thing that, well, she had a couple of areas that were really bothering her. And the area that we worked on first was her closet. She didn't have a good sense of the clothes that she wore, what she was buying. She had like three closets full and a couple of dressers. And kind of the proverbial didn't have anything to wear. And so we really worked on figuring out what her style was, what served her. We got rid of all that other stuff. So she was able to get everything down to one closet. And now she's just so happy. She gets out of the door quicker. She feels confident. So she shows up better at work. And it's just made a world of difference. And it sort of springboarded her. She had a lot of what I call sentimental clutter, as well. A lot of things from family and travel and stuff like that she was having trouble dealing with, but it springboarded her so that she was able to really start working on that as well. I had another client that was really inundated by a lot of paper clutter. She just could not figure out how to work on her paper and her bills and stuff like that. And as a result, for her, what she was doing, stuff would be buried in the paper. She lost things. It cost her a lot of money. And a huge aha for her when we were working together. Her goddaughter was getting married, and she bought a lot of stuff for the wedding on Amazon.
Mhm.
And she said in the past, that stuff would just be buried, and if she didn't use it, she would not find it soon enough to return it. And she would just, take a wash on the money. And she actually got back about $1,000
Oh my goodness.
in, yeah, that much. She was able to return and get that money back. And she said before she would have just lost that money. So it's been quite a financial awakening for her. So all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the whole paper thing. I'm not big on paperwork, and my philosophy is kind
Yeah.
of if you let it sit long enough, it's out of date, or and you can just throw it away.
Well, yeah, that works. Just get rid of it. So,
You don't even have to file it. Just
exactly. That's not doing any good. Just get rid of it.
just recycle it.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Well, you mentioned paper. Actually, what I'm really working on now, for myself and to help my Ace Year Spacers is really learning how to digitize everything so that I have everything digitized. And I think that makes a huge difference. You can get your papers down to just a small amount, and then you know how to access everything. Of course, a big key there is making sure that you have your proper backup set up. But once you get that done, you have confidence that your computer's not going to crash and you're not going to lose everything. And then it's just so much easier to find stuff.
Right. And, but decluttering your computer is important too. I mean, I know when I take the time to, because a lot of times I'll scan things in, or like when I'm looking for pictures for my, the podcast video slideshows, I put them all on my desktop. And then I look at my desktop and it's stressful,
Right.
and so when I take the time to go in and delete and clean things up and move them to folders, it really makes me, I mean, I don't know if that sounds crazy, but it makes me feel so much better.
Oh no, I know a lot of people who are exactly the same way. And I mean, in digital clutter, and that's the thing about our computers. You think you've got all this space. We think I've got all this space. I can put so much on here. But the reality is, you need to have a good system so that you know what's there and so that you're able to find what's there. Then you can it's useful to you. It's not useful to you if it's just living around there and stressing you out. So,
Yeah. And I know, I mean, I've got to go and I've got stuff from years and years and years ago that I don't need or have anything to do with anymore. I need to get rid of that. I did finally pay for, what is it, Clean My Mac. And
Hmm.
I'm so glad I did that because on a regular basis, it pops up that it's time to clean, and I launch it and let it do its thing. And I'm always amazed as to how much stuff it gets rid of.
Okay, that's like a really good tip. I'll remember that.
Yeah, because then it goes in and it cleans doubles, it cleans RAM, it just goes through and really does a nice job, and it I don't have to remember it, and so when it says to launch, I just launch it and do it.
Perfect. Perfect. I like that.
Yeah. Now what was it you said a few minutes ago? Hidden clutter.
Yes.
What do you regard as hidden clutter? What's that?
So often people run the gamut in how clutter appears in their life, and I'm talking about physical clutter right now.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes, like, you'll walk into a place, into someone's house or into your own house, and it's all on display. You've got things piled up, on counters. You've got things piled in the floor. You've got clothes and stacked in chairs and stuff like that. That is not hidden. You can easily see that.
Hmm.
But a lot of times people, they keep their common spaces or their, the outside spaces really clean. But then if you open, like when they open a closet, or if they open a cabinet, or drawers to look in, stuff is just jammed in and just shoved in there, and that's where their clutter is. It's hidden, so it's not seen on a regular basis, but it's still there, and it's still taking up that physical and mental bandwidth.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So that doesn't work to have your living space look nice, but have your closets be a mess.
Well, well, it's like it's a step up maybe, but still it still is clutter. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. And how does this affect people mentally?
Well, clutter is actually very stressful. They've done studies on it.
Ah.
And when people's surroundings are not organized to a way that supports them, it really does cause a lot of stress and anxiety, frustration. You're taking up time looking for things.
Hmm.
It's distracting if you're trying to concentrate on something, really focus on something. That pile of clutter over there, it distracts you. You think, oh, I should deal with that, or oh, that clutter's driving me crazy. So it really does. It has it, and like I mentioned before, even if you think, oh, clutter doesn't bother me, it's not a big deal, I've got this clutter, it doesn't bother me, it really is taking up that physical and mental bandwidth that you could better use for something else.
Hmm. 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 Does have you ever worked with anyone? I just had this thought that maybe was feeling like they don't have a lot of energy, they're tired all the time, and they declutter, and it's made a difference.
You know what? I personally haven't, but I know of people who I have other friends who do work with people with clutter, and it's been, they have had people with those results. So it absolutely does. It bears on your energy. So
Hmm.
absolutely.
Hmm. So if somebody is feeling inspired here and feeling like, oh, Mike, I mean, I'm like kind of cleaning up my desk while we're talking.
Very good.
I'm looking around and I'm going, no, that doesn't need to be here. Um, it's sort of an automatic thing. So if somebody feels like, okay, I really need to declutter, I've got too much stuff, where should they start? Or what are maybe some of the common mistakes people make when they start to do this?
So actually, surprisingly, one mistake that people often make is sometimes they'll start too quickly to declutter without doing a little prep work first.
Okay. What's the prep
Often,
work, Leanne?
well, I'll tell you about that. Often people are told, they're told, just pick that first decluttered drawer that you find, or the first cabinet or first surface that you see, and start decluttering. And there is some merit to that, because it kind of gets your decluttering juices flowing. But if you really are serious about undergoing a decluttering process, getting your house organized and decluttered, it's much better if you actually step back and make some determinations where you're going to start decluttering, what you're going to do with the things that aren't staying in your space, and why you want to declutter. That's a big thing. Decluttering actually why, what's beyond the clutter for you. And if you step back and you make these decisions, you're in a better place when you do start decluttering, so that you don't get overwhelmed or stopped, or you're able to actually proceed better with your decluttering process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So where would you suggest somebody, say we're talking about their home, where is a good place to start?
So you know what, Janine, I actually have what I call my ACE method for getting decluttered. And ACE is an acronym, and the A part of it stands for assessing. And that is what we do right in the very beginning. And when you're trying to determine where to declutter, and part of the assessing, I have people ask themselves a series of questions. First of all, where's the pain point? What bothers me the most? What area of my home bothers me the most? What area makes the most difference to declutter? Those could be the same thing, or they could be two different things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What area do I think will be the easiest to declutter, and why? And I also have them take a look at what area do I think will be the hardest to declutter, and why. And once they start kind of looking at the answers to these questions, there should be a place or two will pop up that this is really where I should be working on. For instance, if somebody, maybe their pain point is the spare bedroom when they go up there, but they really, really want to do dinner parties. So maybe and then they say, which is easier? It might be easier for me to declutter my dining room, and it might be really hard for me to declutter the guest bedroom because I've got a lot of sentimental things up here and I'm not sure what to do with it. So then, even though the pain point might be that guest bedroom, that might really drive the person crazy, it's better for them to start with the dining room, because there's a reason why there's something aspirational there, so that they can have some people over for dinner, and it's an easier space. I always suggest, if you've got a couple of spaces that you just can't decide between, do the easiest space first, because decluttering is building up a muscle, and you'll get a win under your belt a little bit quicker, and it'll be, if you start with a harder space, you'll get stopped easier. You'll get better at it as you declutter, so that when it's time to tackle that harder space, you have more decluttering skills to be able to do it better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I mean, I've been in a few homes where I look around and I go, oh my God, where would you even start here? I'm like, mm-hmm. I'd burn it down.
Well, yes.
I mean, some people have just, it's almost like they've given up.
Right.
And everything is just like stuff all over the place, all tables, counters, chairs, sofas, everything has just got stuff everywhere. I don't know how anybody can even live in that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I will tell you that everybody has a different declutter threshold, or a different clutter threshold. So what drives one person crazy may not necessarily drive another person crazy. So there is something there about knowing what your clutter threshold is and what you can stand. But when you're in a space like that where there's just so much and it's so overwhelming, that's why it's key to actually step back, think about the different spaces. Maybe if you're in some place like that, you think about the table versus the sofa versus this corner of the room. And once you pick a place to start, you actually put on blinders to the rest of it. Because if you start looking around at the rest of it while you're working on one space, you are going to get overwhelmed. You are going to say, "Yeah, I can't do this." And so that's why it's like, just put blinders on and stay focused just on the space that you're working on.
So, Leanne, what would you, are there any pieces of, I don't know, bookcases, or I'm thinking of someone who, like, I don't have a lot of storage space in my place. It just wasn't built that way. And so my husband's been building outside storage spaces well, we're on a homestead, so lots of, there are lots of things right. You need on a homestead. It's actually, I'm finding, not the least expensive way to live, as many people would think, because you need a lot of stuff to run right. a homestead. So, but what would somebody do? Say they live in a small home or an apartment and there's not much storage, but they have things that they need and they use, and they just don't want it out all the time. They want their space a little clearer. What would you recommend?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. I'm gonna borrow an idea from another woman. Her name is Dana White, and she's got a website called "A Slob Comes Clean." She's just hysterical. And she says the container determines how much you can keep. You get to determine what you can keep. So you really need to look at, if you don't have enough storage space, you've got to be really disciplined and look at what you have the ability to store. That said, also, there are some really wonderful pieces of furniture that you can get that have a lot of storage in them. And what you maybe need to do then is, of course, you always declutter first. Get rid of the things that aren't serving you and what you're not using, what you don't absolutely love. And then there are ways that you can organize and get, multitasking pieces of furniture with a lot of storage that can help you with that.
Is there any particular place that you like to send people to pick out something like that? Like, I don't know, IKEA or Bed Bath and Beyond, or
well, in the United States, I love the Container Store. I don't know if that's other places in the world as well, but it's just, they have so many wonderful storage solutions. And you know what IKEA does as well? They have a couple of really great bookcases. There's one, I can't think, they changed the name of it. It used to be called their Expedit bookcase, but it's almost squares, like in grids, and you can put some of them, that you can put doors on part of it. So some of it's closed storage and some of it's open and stuff like that. So there are some really wonderful things at IKEA. Online, Amazon has stuff, and you can Google, there are all sorts of places online where you can find great storage things, but those are some of my favorites. And you know what? Another really great thing about the Container Store, they actually have a blog, and they have, I can't remember what they call it, but they have lots of inspirational ideas and things like that. So regardless of whether you're going to get something at the Container Store or not, you can go there for really wonderful ideas on how you can maximize your space.
That sounds good. So now, one of the methods I've seen or read is that you take everything out, or maybe even just like if you're doing a bookcase, or it might be hard to take everything out of a room, but take all the stuff that's on shelves and maybe put it all in the middle of the room or something like that. Clean the shelves really well before you put stuff back on, and then really take each piece. Like, I have so much artwork and stuff. I've done so much traveling in my life, and I've been around for a while, so I've collected things. And you're making me think, okay, maybe I really need to look at some of this stuff again. And, but I do like to be surrounded by beauty. But anyway, take each piece and really look at it and feel for, is this something you really need to keep? Or is it something that, can go into a garage sale or an antique shop or something like that? And then put stuff back. Is that better than just taking, how do I want to say this? I'm looking at a shelf right now. So is it better to just look at it and start taking pieces away? Or is it better to take everything off and start over and put things one at a time back that you really want to keep?
Well, Janine, I'll tell you, there are all sorts of different ways that you can go about decluttering. And what you need to do is you need to find the way that works for you. I think what you were kind of describing was Marie Kondo's method. And everybody, she's got a new show on Netflix. So everybody's like, doing their KonMari and what is it? The magic of tidying up. And what her method is you take a category of thing like clothes or, papers or books or something, you pull it all out and you determine if it sparks joy, and then whatever sparks joy stays, whatever doesn't, you goes somewhere. I think that it is a really good idea to take things out and clean the space before you put them back in and determine what you want to keep and what sparks joy. But I think that if you do something so large, like pull out all of your clothes or pull out all of your books, pull out all of a certain category, unless it's a smaller category of things, you can get overwhelmed. So the method that I like to use myself, even though when I work with people one-on-one, we determine what method works better for them, is once we've defined that space, once you've done the assessing, when we get to the C for clearing, I actually like for you to subdivide the space up into little, very small parts. One that you can actually like, and once you think you've subdivided it down small enough, make it even smaller. Like if you were doing a kitchen, maybe do one cabinet, or maybe even one drawer, or half of a cabinet. And I want you to take everything out, declutter it completely, determine what stays and what goes, and then clean that area and then put it back so that little subsection is completely decluttered before you go on to the next, so that when you're in the midst of decluttering, you don't have a lot of stuff in your space and it's not overwhelming and it doesn't look worse before it gets better. That's what happens a lot of times if you pull everything out and you get started and then you get tired, and you've still got tons of clothes on the bed and you're like, well, what do I do now? Or you think that didn't work. Exactly. Like that didn't work. I'm never going to declutter again. And then on the flip side of that, there's a woman, I think her name is Alejandro Costello. She has a method which I really think it's kind of great. I've tried it myself. She will actually, you can take something like this, works really well with like a pantry or your shelves or something like that. Set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes and go in there with the objective is that the space will be better 15 minutes later than it was when you started. And then you pull out things and you can do a little arranging and get it. You can do this with a closet too. Get it so that it's better. And then maybe keep doing those little 15-minute sessions until you kind of get it where you want it to be. So it really, it depends on what works best for you, what method resonates with you. So it's really, it really is. It's a personal thing. What works best for people.
And taking pieces at a time, like one step at a time, will help you to not feel overwhelmed. What I was going to say is like maybe in a kitchen or something like that. If you took one drawer a day, right, and just take everything out of one drawer. Look at what you use and what you don't use. How many old plastic spoons and forks are in
Exactly.
there,
Hmm.
that kind of thing, and clean it up. That will give you, because you have to have a feeling of accomplishment, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, and you mentioned that feeling of accomplishment. When you start, take before pictures.
Oh,
Um,
that's a good idea. Hmm.
because when you're in the midst of it, you may think, oh, I haven't really made any progress. But when you go back and look at those before pictures, you say, ooh, I really have made progress. And then when you get to the end, and take pictures in between too, when you get to the end with those after pictures, it really does make a huge difference.
I never thought of that. That's a great idea. Open a drawer, take a picture, then take everything
Mhm.
out and go through it, put back what you want, toss the rest,
Sure.
and compare. It's a great idea. So, what other what would you do like with a basement, or because that's kind of a hidden area.
Yes.
It's,
Yeah.
that's where most
Yeah.
people's, if you have a basement, that's probably where your washer and dryer are. That's probably where you stuff all of your winter gear, your camping gear, all of your outdoor sports things, and stuff probably just gets piled up.
Well, you know what, Janine, I'm going to tell you a little story.
Okay.
Probably, gosh, I don't know how long this was, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, maybe not quite that long. But my mother and I were out for a drive one day,
Hmm.
and she pointed out this house to me. And she says, I love that house. That is exactly the house that your father and I need. Now, Janine, I had heard my mother utter that same statement probably 100 times. And you know what? I did not have to ask her why she wasn't going to buy it. I was really painfully aware of her why. You see, in order to move into a new house, that would require my parents to move out of their current house, and that would entail them dealing with the basement from hell that they had.
Ah.
You know, that basement that they had was just a black hole of clutter. It sucked the life out of any of us anytime we went down there to try and find anything. It contained probably 40 plus years of just really crazy stuff. They had like every computer and old TV my parents had ever owned, odd, really strange furniture from long dead relatives. And there was even an old gas stove down there, in case the electricity ever went out,
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
there was something down there. So, and this basement held them back completely. It stopped them from really achieving their big dream of moving into a house that they really wanted and really served them. So we did, and there were actually a lot of false starts, but we finally figured out what to do and got that basement cleaned out. And the way that we did it was exactly the way. It's like we subdivided the basement up into little parts. And we got put blinders on for the rest of it, and got that basement cleaned out. And probably a couple of years later, mother and I were driving around. She drove me past a house and she said, I love that house. It's exactly the house your father and I need. And we just bought it. So we were actually able to get that basement decluttered, and they were able to move into their dream house. So,
Hmm.
you handle a basement exactly the way, you handle any space. Is you subdivide it into little areas and put your blinders on the other for the other areas, and do what you can. And I mean, and this really did take a lot of trial and error to figure this out, Janine. I had done a lot of decluttering in my house and helped other people declutter. But when it came to that basement, I would say, all right, I'm going down there, I'm going to figure it out. And I would get down there and I would just sit on the steps and just stare at it. I was just like paralyzed until we got past that and figured out where to do it. So yes, it can be really quite daunting if you don't have a plan and know what to do.
Hmm. And it sounds like it's worth it to get some help. you know,
Oh, well, yes, it is. It's very worth it to get help. Now, I would not advise, one thing that I don't advise people do is I don't advise them bringing in a professional organizer until they have worked with their own stuff,
hmm
simply because you're going to be making the professional organizer, they move very quickly and they're very good at organizing things. And you're going to be making decisions on things quicker than you would want to. So you're either going to get rid of too many things. You're going to think, oh, I'm so sorry I got rid of that. Or you're going to get rid of things. You're not going to get rid of enough things. It's like you really need to spend time with your own stuff. And then that's when I like to bring in the professional organizer. But it's really wonderful if you bring people in to help you. Get a friend to just sometimes it's as simple as having a friend come and sit with you, and while you are decluttering, and if you can't decide, you hold it up and that friend can say, I don't think you need that, something like that.
Yeah, that's
Or
what I was thinking, is a friend or two, order pizzas or whatever.
Exactly, and help them help you. You can get, and if you've got a lot of stuff that you're going to have to get thrown out, get a couple of kids from the neighborhood, pay them $20 or get them pizza, like you said, and they can help you as well.
Yeah, I can see, because it can be overwhelming. And if you just have a friend or two come over. I had a friend come over and help me go through some of my clothes.
Yes.
And, she's like, no, I don't think so. You don't need that. And I'm like, really? She's, yeah,
I
no,
like that.
put it in the consignment pile. I'm like, oh, all right.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
we got rid of a lot more stuff than I would have done on my own, because I've got the emotional investment and she doesn't.
Exactly. And that's, you just mentioned emotional investment. That's something that really can be difficult. And you mentioned with your artwork earlier, is a lot of that art, the art that you collected on your travels, is that sentimental clutter.
Right.
And what you really need to work on with that is you need to really determine, is it the object itself that I love, or is it what it represents? And if it's something that you don't really like that much and it's just the representation of, a person or a special trip or a special occasion, you see how you can remember that person or that occasion without, cluttering up your space with the item.
Okay, that's good advice, because I think a lot of stuff is emotional.
Yes.
There's, especially, like both of my parents are gone, and I've traveled a lot, so there's a lot of emotional stuff in there. So, okay, so repeat that again. So if you have a piece and you're trying to decide whether to keep it or not.
If it's that sentimental clutter, if it reminds you of, a person, a place, an occasion, something like that, and it's maybe something you don't love that well, but you're thinking, oh, Uncle Frank gave that to me, or that reminds me of my wedding, or that reminds me of that vacation I took to China, or something like that. Figure out how you can remember the occasion or the person without having to hold on to the thing. It can be as simple as, maybe you take a picture of it. If it's a dress, maybe you take a little corner of it and repurpose it into, you could maybe put it in like a little picture frame, like a shadow box, something like that. Or if you have a collection of things, maybe keep just one or two things and get rid of the rest of the collection. It's just for the remembrance of it, so that you don't have everything.
I did that with my Hummels. Because we lived in Switzerland for a while, and I started collecting Hummels, and I'm like, I don't really need all these, so I just kept one. I was a good girl.
Exactly. Perfect. Very good.
I like it. Just before you said take a picture, that popped into my head, and I hadn't thought of that before. But you really could take a couple of pictures, especially if it's a sculpture or something like that. Right. Start a photo album.
Yes.
Because that's something you really would I think you'd want a hard copy of, not just on your computer. And, or even one of those digital frames where the pictures scroll through. Right. And then you could even sell that piece and make some money on it.
There you go. Well, and one other thing that I sometimes will tell people to do is like get like a blank book. It doesn't have to be like a photo album, but like a blank book, maybe some maybe archival pages, maybe not even necessarily. And you can put the picture in there, or you can put a scrap of that cloth in there, or the ticket stub from that, really special performance you went to, and you can make notes about it in the on the paper. And so when you flip through, you see the picture, and you remember, and you see the notes, and it's much easier to flip through that little special notebook that you're keeping, or that special book that you're keeping, than it is to try and figure out what you're going to do with all the stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Any other tips you'd like to share with how to, because it is, I'm finding that it's hard to let go of stuff. And I never really thought much about it, but my husband's much more of he likes the clean open space. And I've got a lot of stuff, partially too from moving from a bigger house to a smaller house, and then combining our houses. And then my mom died, and I ended up with half of that stuff that we didn't sell. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to let go.
Well, there's a lot of things that you can do. And one thing that I say is, if you've got something, like for instance, if you had some china, the china or dishes that were your mother's, and it's hard to let them go, and you like them, start using them and get rid of your existing dishes and use those, like replace, put them in there and make them the replacement, make them the dishes that you're actually using. Or if there's something that you're having trouble letting go of, box it up, put it in a box, label what's in there, date it, and put it up for about 6 months, and then pull it out after 6 months and see if it's okay to let it go then. Or you can do something like where you actually say, I'm going to let go of one thing today, and then maybe tomorrow I'm going to let go of 2 things, or in 3 days. And so that you kind of increase the number, and again, you're increasing that muscle of those sentimental type things that you're getting rid of. It's a little easier if you do it just a little tiny bit at a time.
Good advice, Leanne. Okay, well, I'm going to do my best to start. Okay. So now, how do you help people, especially people who aren't in your town? Where do you live anyway?
I live in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Ah, okay. Oh, I get that little Southern accent there.
Yeah. Yes.
So for people who can't come to you, or you can't go to them, how do you help people?
Right. Well, I do have my Let's Ace Your Space website, where I have a lot of blog posts, things like that. I have a dedicated Facebook group where we do I do Facebook Lives once a week, and have a lot of trainings and stuff in there. I do work one-on-one with clients. I have like a 4-month coaching program where we take a look at, and again, like Janine, I mentioned, why are you decluttering? That's such a key thing, because that's what's going to get you through. We really look really strongly at the people's why, and I set them up and really help them achieve what they want to achieve in their space. And I actually, last year, I did some group programs. I called them my Clutter Buster Boot Camp. And I'm not running those right now, but I'm actually going to, a little later this year, I'm probably going to be offering those as like smaller evergreen online programs that people can purchase and walk through that. It's some really great information. It gives you a lot of the information that I told you about the sentimental items and things like that. And it gives them a step-by-step process of how to actually do the assessing of where they want to start, and then what to do once they decide, and then actually how to keep it decluttered once you've got it decluttered.
Yeah, that's a good point, Leanne. Getting everything decluttered and then just starting to fill it back up again doesn't work.
Exactly.
And it sounds like a group would be it'd be a great support too.
Oh, it really is. It really is. It's helpful when you've got other people going through something that the same thing that you are.
So, okay, it sounds like the very first step that everyone should take is to get a pad of paper out and a pen or pencil and write down on the top, why do I want to declutter and get organized? Why is this
Yes.
important to me? And
Yes.
write that out, because you're right. If you don't really know why you're doing something, if you're just doing something because you think it's a good idea, you're probably not going to really follow through.
And another thing that I love for people to do is I want them to think about being in their decluttered space once that space is completely the way that they imagine it and want it. And I want them to think about what they're doing, how they're feeling, how they're behaving in and out of that space, and just get really present to what's possible being in that space.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I've found that whether it's a kid's bedroom or a person's home or their office space, that if it's a mess, usually it's a physical sign of the mess that's in their head.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It's like, it's like the mental clutter and the physical clutter go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. They really do. And I think that's really important for people to understand, because I know, like with Stephen's kids, when their room is a mess, they're going through something. They're going through some emotional stuff. They're off and they're not functioning very well. And when they finally decide to tackle it and get their room cleaned up and organized, I can just see it in their daily life. It's definitely a reflection of where they're at. And people whose homes are really cluttered and really messy, their life is too.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think it can also have it's kind of like the chicken and the egg. Different, you can clean up yourself mentally in your life by just starting with your living space.
Right. Well, and that's actually interesting. You mentioned the chicken and the egg and your why and why you declutter. And that's why I really love for people to find their why and be really present to what's available to them before they start decluttering. But I also know that some people, when they actually, it's a little murky for them, but when they actually start decluttering, it's like the why comes to them and they are able to. So it's like, sometimes it comes both ways, but I really do like for people to know why and what's going on first. And, and Janine, that's also why, when you read the, my intro, I mentioned that I work with, entrepreneurs and other on-the-go people. I really think that, entrepreneurs, the reason why I love working with entrepreneurs is because they are up to a big game. And if the clutter is stopping them, then they are stopped from helping all the people that they would be helping otherwise. So that's why I really want them to, I really focus on helping them bust through that so that they're available to do what they're supposed to do in the world with all those other people.
So it gets paid forward.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome. So once again, Let's Ace Your Space. That's your website.com. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
And there'll be a link on the podcast website too, but that's pretty easy for people to type in. And is that the best place for people to connect with you?
Let's Ace Your Space.com. Yes, they can search for the Let's Ace Your Space Facebook group.
Okay.
And then my email address is let'saceyourspace@gmail.com. They can drop me an email as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Wow, this has been great. So is there anything we missed or any final words that you want to impart?
So yes, I kind of want to tell you the rest of the story about my parents and their basement.
Okay.
So, they did absolutely get that basement cleared up. They moved into their dream house. But my mother was diagnosed with cancer less than 2 years after they moved in, and she passed away a short time later. And you know what, Janine, I am so glad that my parents had the opportunity to experience their dream house. But the truth of the matter is that had they taken action on their clutter earlier, they really would have had more time to enjoy that experience. So, we don't know what life has in store for us. So don't put off your goals and dreams. I don't want to see anybody miss the opportunity to live their dreams because of their clutter. And that's really why I do what I do.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you are doing it because I think it's important. You obviously enjoy doing what you love. Sounds like you're very good at it, and helping people to move forward and get out of their stuck space so they can fully be who they are meant to be and do what they're here to do is an important skill that you're helping people to accomplish.
Well, thank you, Janine. And I'm so glad that I got to come on today and talk about this thing that I love so much with you.
Before this gets uploaded, there will be another podcast episode on feng shui, and that's what motivated me to connect with you. Part of what she talks about with feng shui is the importance of decluttering and organizing. So I thought, I should talk to an expert on this then.
I'm looking forward to listening to that. I love feng shui. That's so cool.
Yeah, I do too. It's pretty fascinating. Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your coming on and talking about this. And yeah, we'll connect again.
Thank you, Janine. I enjoyed it.
I did too. Thanks. Thank you for listening, and thank you so much, Leanne Pruett, for sharing your tips and tricks with us on organizing and decluttering. The podcast website is realjanine.com, where you can listen to or download episodes and click on links and click on links to my guests' information. You can sign up for the podcast weekly blog newsletter to keep up on new episodes, archives, life updates, and healthy recipes. And remember, Janine is Janeean. To subscribe to Keeping It Real with Janine, go to iTunes or your favorite podcast provider. And check out my podcast YouTube channel with video slideshows of my conversations. Do you know someone who would benefit from my conversation with Leanne Pruett? Oh my goodness, everyone can benefit from more organization. Well, maybe not my mother. She was super organized and tidy. But for the rest of us, we can all benefit. So please share the love. Thanks for listening. Take care and be well.